The topic I have chosen, friends, is about the greatness of the Bhagavad Gita and why a systematic study can be very useful. I would more like it to be an interactive session. For the first few minutes, I will just share some thoughts on it. As this is online, we need a lot of technology support. My prayers to Lord Vinayaka to see that there is no interruption in our Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Niravignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. My salutations to Vyasacharya. We are discussing the great composition, the compilation of the Bhagavad Gita. It is to these people I owe a lot, Swami Chinmayananda, who brought the traditional teaching down to everybody who is keen to study. Until then, it was only very few people had the eligibility to study all these things. A great regards to his teacher, Swami Tapovan Maharaj, whose books on the wanderings in the Himalayas is absolutely amazing to see his vision of Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshan. To Swami Dayanand, the teacher of my teacher, to Swami Tejomayananda, who introduced me to the world of the Upanishads, to Swami Brahmananda of Bangalore, Swami Sukubodhananda ji, Swami Anubhavananda ji, a great teacher of the Ashtavakra level. Thousands of his talks are available on YouTube, and any topic that you want, you will be able to get him. And to my teacher, Swami Paramarthananda, who's made the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads so easily digestible, my pranams. Tadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Personal growth has been a great interest for me for a lot of years, and I'd studied a lot of Western authors, particularly people like Stephen Covey. And once Narayana started a unit at Chinmaya Mission Hospital, I had invited Swami Brahmananda to open our unit. A short while later, he requested me to inaugurate a Gita Jnana Yajna. That was about 12 years ago, and believe me, I had absolutely no idea about the Bhagavad Gita, except I had attended a few talks, but it had made no sense to me. Just like I knew about the Quran for the Muslims, the Bible for the Christians, I knew a little bit about the Bhagavad Gita, but nothing more. And because I thought I had to know something about the Gita, that forced me to make a systematic study of the Bhagavad Gita. This journey started maybe around 12 or 13 years ago. I soon realized that no book, no author had such a transformative impact. The beauty of the Bhagavad Gita is each time you see the same verses, you see it has a deeper impact. What is so great about the Bhagavad Gita? The Bhagavad Gita is a Gita. Gita means it is a song. When you translate it, the impact is lost. Although many of us or most of us don't have a sound knowledge in Sanskrit, I would strongly recommend that we must study it from Sanskrit, the English translation. So that means the word we should memorize, we should be able to chant it in Sanskrit. We need, very importantly, a competent teacher. The way you study it should be consistent and systematic, like you do any program, any course. And because it is 700 verses and in Sanskrit, you need a lot of grace. And before we study, there is something called the Dhyana Shlokas. We have to study the Dhyana Shlokas, and studying the Dhyana Shlokas invokes certain blessings that will help you to complete the journey of this 700 verses. I will give you a taste of one of the Dhyana Shlokas. These are written about 500 years ago by a great teacher called Madhusudana Saraswati, who wrote a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. And before that, he wrote a few of these verses which are very popular. This particular one goes like this. Mukam karoti vachalam angam langayate girim yat kripa tamaham vande paramananda madhavam. Through the grace of God, it is possible for the dumb to become eloquent, for the lame to climb mountains, and that is what the power of grace can be. This is another Dhyana Shloka which goes like this. Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Geetamritam Mahat. Krishna has done a great work for us, like milking the essence of all the Upanishads and giving it to us. Partha here represents all of us. How do we study the Gita? I have given a sample verse. The verse would be like this. Traditionally, it requires that the student should be able to chant the verse. I will chant the verse for you. It goes like this. Matra sparshasu kaunteya sita ushna sukha dukkadaya agama pahino nityaha tam titikshassu bharata. Although we do not know Sanskrit, we can get the word to word meaning. What does the meaning go? Matra means the sense objects. Sparsha means the sense organs. For example, my hand is touching the mouse. So this is matra, this is sparsha. Kaunteya refers to Arjuna, but I have trained myself that whenever Krishna calls Arjuna, we have to say that message is for me. So we have multiple names. All the names that Krishna refers to. Kaunteya means son of Kaunti. Sita means cold. Ushna means hot. Sukha, dukkha, happiness, sadness, etc. That means when we are fast asleep, our mind is asleep and therefore our sense organs do not function fully. The moment we wake up, the mind wakes up. And when the mind wakes up, our sense organs become enlivened. At that time, what happens? Our sense organs meet with the sense objects. Sita, Ushna, hot, cold, happiness, and sorrow keep on happening. Agama, Pahino, it comes, it goes, it comes and goes. And Krishna says it is anityaha. That means sadness and happiness keep on going in a form of cycle. Nothing is permanent. And therefore, his advice for you is Tam titikshassa bharata. O Arjuna, Arjuna means each one of us. Titiksha means you must be mentally strong. Just one verse like this, so much of meaning is there. And therefore, if the teacher helps you to give you the word-to-word meaning, there is so much. The whole verse itself says, be mentally strong because the world around you is constantly changing. Mahatma Gandhi, who spent a lot of time in prison, had the Bhagavad Gita with him. He also had a teacher for the Bhagavad Gita. And this is what he has written about the Gita. I will read. He says the Gita is a universal mother. She turns away nobody. Her door is wide open to anyone who knocks. A true votary of the Gita does not know what disappointment is. But the peace and joy comes not to a skeptic or to who's proud of his intellect and learning. It is reserved only for the humble in spirit who bring worshipfulness of faith and undivided singleness of mind. The actual teaching of the Bhagavad Gita starts in the second verse, number 11. Krishna begins with a very strong statement to Arjuna. He says, "O Arjuna, you are speaking like a wise person." The word Pandita means a wise person. It also means a spiritually wise person. He says, you are speaking like a wise person. The background is the entire first chapter. Arjuna was giving reason after reason to Sri Krishna why he should not fight. And it was very strong argument. So Krishna says, you are speaking like a wise person. But the verse meaning actually is this. Krishna is asking each one of us, is there any bit of sorrow in your heart? Are you sorrowful for any reason? If there is some amount of sorrow in you, that you deserve to study the Bhagavad Gita, because the Bhagavad Gita is the answer to remove any sorrow from your heart. So the central teaching of the Bhagavad Gita is self-ignorance. That means if I do not know my true nature, that is the cause of all problems. If I get to know who I really am, that is the solution to all my problems. In Sanskrit, it goes like this: Atma Ajnanam Samsara Karanam, Atma Jnanam Moksha Karanam. That means if I'm ignorant about myself, I have all the problems in the world. if I get to know who I am, which the Bhagavad Gita teaches, that is the path to moksha. There are 6 important topics which the Bhagavad Gita deals with. And they would be, in Sanskrit, it goes like this: Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, Bandha, Moksha, and Sadhana. Jiva means the individual I. Jagat means everything which I experience as other than me, not I. When I wake up, I have a sense of this is me and this is not me. I know for one thing, this wonderful world I have not created. I have not created my body. There must be some superpower who has created both of us, and that I call as Ishvara or God. So already we have 3 things: the Jiva, that is me, the world I experience as Jagat, and God. I see a lot of limitations and problem. That is what I experience as Bandha. Then all spiritual texts say there is a solution to all the problem, and those are the spiritual exercises called the various sadhanas. So this is the whole topic of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhajagovindam has said something, a very famous verse which goes like this: Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam, iha samsare bahudustare, kripaya pare pahi murare. If you look at our lives are like a merry-go-round. It goes on and on and on without a stop. A great teacher has said, our life can be MBBS. And what does MBBS stands for? Meaningless, boring, burdensome struggle. Because day in and day out, we keep doing the same thing. And if you look from a scriptural point of view, this is not the only life that we have been. We have been through countless number of lives doing the same thing again. Now, the scriptures say, if you are wise and if you are able to learn from the scriptures, it is possible to get out of this cycle. And Adi Shankara, who has also composed the Bhajagovindam, has given us another beautiful verse which says, Bhagavad Gita Kinchidadita. If you are able to study the Bhagavad Gita, the last line I have underlined which says Yamenana Charcha, you will get the technique to get out of Yamadharmaraja's list. That means you move from Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Now, the Bhagavad Gita, therefore, is a scriptural manual that will help you to discover your immortality. But this is possible, like any scripture, which is also called a gospel or a testament. A scripture should be studied with Shraddha. What is Shraddha? Shraddha means whatever I read is gospel truth. It is spelled out by God. The word testament means it has been testified, it has been verified. God has verified to it. The word Bible means the book of all books. So if a scripture has to be read with Shraddha, what the scripture says is truth. If I am not able to understand it, if I am not able to get the import, it means the limitations in mine, so the problem must be mine. Bhagavad Gita has been composed by Veda Vyasa. It has been delivered to Arjuna, and it has been given by Sri Krishna. Just like democracy is of the people, for the people, by the people, the Gita has been written by a householder, a Grihastha Veda Vyasa, to a Grihastha Arjuna, and it has been given to us by Lord Krishna. It is a user's manual for people who are steeped in worldly issues. Adi Shankara discovered the Bhagavad Gita in the middle of the Mahabharata, and he said this has to be taken out and made a separate book by itself. He says that the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Vedas. Our scriptures are so vast, very difficult to study. But he said if you make a thorough study of the Bhagavad Gita, it is as good as studying the entire scriptural literature. And that is good news that Adi Shankara has given. There are many, many topics that are dealt in the Bhagavad Gita, like Karma Yoga, about meditation, about ethics. But Adi Shankara clearly points out what is the central theme. In Sanskrit, the word for central theme is Tatparya. The central theme or tatparya of the Bhagavad Gita is a means for liberation. The Bhagavad Gita gives you a knowledge of how you can discover liberation. Now, we should know, what do you mean by liberation? When you say liberation or bondage, you are asking liberation from what? Now, bondage means some form of confinement, a restriction. Nobody likes any form of limitations, but all of us realize my body is limited, my emotions are limited, intellectually I'm limited, my resources are limited, and whenever I experience limitations, I don't like it, and this is called bandhaha. And we, in our own intelligence, we struggle day in and day out to see how we can overcome these limitations, because we want to be in charge of our lives. Many things happen which we don't want to happen, and many things that we want to happen do not happen. Now, because of all these things, we get emotionally upset, and sometimes terribly upset, maybe angry, upset, and depressed. And this is exactly what happened to Arjuna. The first chapter portrays the typical suffering or intense suffering that we sometimes go through. And Arjuna was a person of great accomplishments, and he was preparing for a war of his lifetime. But because of emotional upset, he found himself thoroughly dysfunctional. So the first chapter helps us teachings whenever it is addressed to Arjuna. Whenever you hear the word Partha, O Kaunteya, remember these are our names. So Dhananjaya is an additional name. Anaga means that sinless one is another name for ourselves. Bharata, Pandava, Gudakesha, Parantapa, all these are all names. Whenever Krishna says these names, it means it is another name for myself. Krishna begins his teachings by saying that we are not just limited to this body-mind complex. In addition to this body-mind complex, there is something of the embodied. And this is what he brings about in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He goes all out to convince Arjuna that we are not limited. Our experiences tell us that we are very limited, but he wants us to realize that there is something beyond the limitations. Now, what is a sadhana? A sadhana is a spiritual exercise. All of us who are spiritual seekers are called sadhaka. A sadhaka has to use a spiritual exercise called sadhana to reach my goal called sadhyam. The goal is called sadhyam and become a siddha. To do this, the Bhagavad Gita gives us various forms of spiritual exercises. Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. If you study the Bhagavad Gita under a proper guide, those who have commented on the Bhagavad Gita say the Bhagavad Gita is divided into shatkams of 3. There are 3 shatkams, and the shatkams are called Prathama Shatkam, Madhyama Shatkam, and Charama Shatkam. Now, the Prathama Shatkam, if you can see the slide, I'm just showing you in a big, the first Shatkam, the first set of 6 chapters deal with 3 important topics. They are called, the Bhagavad Gita deals with what is called Tat Tvam Asi. Tvam is the individual. The sadhana in the first 6 chapters is Karma Yoga. And the first 6 chapters say, if you want to achieve anything in life, 3 things are important. One is called Prayatnam. You have to make your effort. The next 6 chapters talk about the God principle, Tat, that principle. The sadhana here is called Upasana Yoga, which includes all forms of meditations, including bhakti. And the next 6 chapters say, if you want to accomplish anything, your efforts alone will not do. You will have to be able to download grace. The last 6 chapters talk about the essential nature of the individual, the essential nature of God is one and the same. And this sadhana is called Jnana Yoga. And the last 6 chapters talk about the importance of values. You may have spiritual knowledge, but if you are not a person of unblemished values, the knowledge and the is not going to gel well with you. It is going to be like oil and water. The Bhagavad Gita is a samvada. Samvada means Arjuna asks questions and Krishna answers them. And there are brilliant questions by Arjuna, for which we are able to understand, because it is so much in our own experience. In the third chapter, Arjuna asks this question: Bhagwan, I know what is right, I know what is wrong, but I still continue to do what is wrong. What is that force that makes me do wrong? And Krishna explains, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha. As I said, I'm not going to discuss too much about the Gita. I will leave more of these for question-answer discussion. In the second chapter, one nice question that Arjuna asks is, how does a person who is spiritually wise, how does he sit, how does he stand, how does he walk, how does he talk? And Krishna answers, Rajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata atman evatmana tushtaha. That person who has discovered purnatvam within him is called a Sthita Prajna. Krishna gives a brilliant discourse on what meditation. No text will give more about meditation than what the Bhagavad Gita gives. And Arjuna has this question, Bhagwan, my mind is so restless, my mind is wandering. How am I able to do meditation? Can you help me? Somewhere I would like to conclude, which says, once we learn about the limitless aspect about me, once you learn there is something in me which is Purna, then from that angle, how can I look at my life objectively? This will help us to accept the limitations of my body, the limitations of my mind, and to anchor in the unlimited self of us. And this experience is what is called Jivan Muktaha. Although my body is limited, my mind is limited, I experience a sense of limitlessness. Swami Anubhavananda calls it, where are you living? And when you say you are from Karnataka, he says you got the answer. You have to Karnatak. Wake up with the feeling that although my body is limited, my body mind is only a dress that I need to put on. The unlimited you functions through a limited body mind. The 15th chapter is one of the most beautiful chapters, where Krishna talks about who is Purushottama. My question to all of you listening, there are 80 or 90 people listening, who is the best amongst all of us? And can you have the answer? The answer is, the best among all of us is you yourself. There is no greater person in the world than you. And Krishna says there are three kinds of people. He says Kshara Purusha and Akshara Purusha. And he defines Uttama Purusha or Purushottama is the one who's struggling to learn the Bhagavad Gita. And he says, you have to take care of yourself, because I am there within you as the consciousness principle because of which you are listening. And therefore you have to nurture your body, your mind, because I am there as that principle within you. And that is called Purushottama. The 15th chapter ends in a climax which goes like this. Yo mam eva asammodaha janati Purushottama. Krishna wants you to understand who this Purushottama is. Modaha means fool. Sammodaha means great fool. Asammodaha means wise person. When you are spiritually wise, you will discover that you are none other than Purushottama. And then he concludes the 15th chapter, which is the climax of the entire Bhagavad Gita, which he tells Arjuna, Iti guhyatamam shastram. I have told you the greatest secret of all secrets. And then suddenly he uses a new word for Arjuna. He says anaga. Anaga means the sinless one, the one who is incapable of sin, which means if I am capable of sin, I am not worthy of this secret. But if I am incapable of sin, krita kritasya bharata, I experience Purnatvam. Therefore, immediately after the 15th chapter, he starts on Daivi Sampat and Asuri Sampat. He helps us to discover there is the devil in me, and unless I'm able to work on the devil in me, the Bhagavad Gita will not make sense. Friends, the Bhagavad Gita is the simplest of all the scriptural texts that we have. However, I would recommend that before we study the Bhagavad Gita, we study a basic text called the Tattva Bodha. The Tattva Bodha defines certain terms. It tells you what qualifications that we should have, called Sadhana Chatustaya Sampanna. It goes through, like in the medical school, where you learn anatomy and physiology about my body, what are the three bodies, what are the organs through which I'm able to experience the world, what are those organs by which I'm able to interact with the world, what are the three states of consciousness, what do you mean by the waking state, the dream state, the deep sleep state, what are the five koshas within me? Because if I get all these terms very clear, then when Krishna uses the word Atma, then I know what he means. When he uses the word Jivan Muktaha, how I can be free. When he talks about the law of karma, then I'm able to understand. So I strongly recommend that we go through the Tattva Bodha in a very systematic manner. I will conclude with the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita, which goes like this. This is not Krishna's verse, because by now Krishna and Arjuna have already parted, and there is Sanjaya describing the ecstasy that he goes through, having listened to the Bhagavad Gita. Sanjaya was completely transformed. Arjuna was transformed. So many people were transformed. Dhritarashtra also heard the Bhagavad Gita direct, but nothing happened to him. So the Bhagavad Gita should be something that transforms us. And this is Sanjaya's words. He says, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna. Wherever there is this master of yoga, Shri Krishna. Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara. That means wherever there is Shri Krishna, the higher principle who is always there. Dhanurdhara Partha means each one of us, those very keen to study the Bhagavad Gita, when you have this combination, Tatra, there, you will have Shri, which means wealth, Vijaya, victory, Bhutir, steady progress, Dhruva, Niti, a steady policy, Matir, Mama. This is my opinion, because he says, I am a simple person. This is what Sanjaya has to say. I will conclude with this. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to be able to interact with you.
Right. Any questions, please either put them on the chat or raise your hand and Doctor will answer them. Any questions?
Hello, hi, this is Monica.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Doctor. It was a very insightful thing. I've just started listening to some commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, so I'm really spanking new to this whole thing. But there was one question that I wanted to ask you. Towards the end, you said that Sanjaya was transformed, Arjuna was transformed. How come the Bhagavad Gita was not effective on Dhritarashtra, even though he listened to it? He was fortunate enough to listen to it straight from Krishna.
That is the importance. So it is not the teacher alone that brings about transformation. The qualifications in the student are so important. So that is why we may have the greatest of all teachers, but that is why I said there is a topic called Tattva Bodha. Tattva Bodha talks about 4 kinds of qualifications. And if I'm able to work on those qualifications, then I'm in a very receptive mind. And when the teacher speaks about those things, it makes real sense that can help us to transform.
Okay. Thank you.
There are a few questions on the chat about online classes. Could you answer that?
How can one join your classes? Can we get an online link? Certainly, yes. We have a regular form of class that has been going on for some time during this lockdown period. We have a group of almost 80 to 90 people. Fortunately, we have a great teacher in Swami Paramarthananda. And on the basis of his teachings, what we do is we go through his teachings and each person presents those verses. A lot of people have joined us, about 30, 40 of them, who have not been there in the regular classes, and they are finding it a little difficult. And therefore, I am very keen to start a second group for people who have joined in recently, where we begin with Tattva Bodha and Gita Dhyana Shlokas, where we can download the grace and very systematically study. I'll be very happy. I'm not trying to advertise or anything, but I would be certainly happy. My email is available for you. You can be in touch with me. We will be having classes regularly. You can join the regular classes also. I will share the link with you. Most welcome. And I will also be happy for those who are new to join for the online classes for beginners, where we will systematically begin with Tattva Bodha and so on, so that these scriptural terms are clear for all of us. There are a lot of questions.
Any more questions?
My question is, do we have different meanings in several Gita books? In the Hindi verse, the meaning comes different, as well as any recommendation about the original verse in Hindi. I would always recommend that we study from a teacher. It is difficult to get a living teacher. When we study from books by ourselves, it is possible that we will be making wrong interpretations. My own experience is we have very good teachers, both in Hindi and English available. We just have to look around. Wherever we are, we will find suitable teachers. And unless you're able to get a suitable teacher, sometimes we will make some wrong interpretations. So this is my request, that we go by the guidance of a teacher.
Right. Any more questions? Doctor, I would like to tell you that we have over 100 people. I've been getting constant calls and WhatsApp messages saying they want to be admitted. But we have a limit of 100, and therefore we will be, it has been recorded, and people who miss this can listen to the recording.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hegde. Thank you very much.
I have a question. Can I ask
sure,
Dr. Hegde?
Sure, please.
I'm from Janakiram.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are Gita books available with detailed commentary.
Yes.
Like Shankara's commentary and Yogananda's commentary and other commentaries like Patel's commentary.
Yeah.
Are they sufficient enough to do self-study?
Shankara's commentary is so difficult to understand, sir. Unless we are a great master in Sanskrit, it becomes very difficult. So my recommendation is that I have spoken to you in person also, Mr. Janakiram. We need the guidance. Now, I can personally vouch for certain audio tapes that are available. So audio tapes can be a good substitute for a living teacher. And see, I have never gone personally to any teacher. I have been listening from audio tapes only. So if you can find the audios which are of Swami Paramarthananda or Swami Anubhavananda, that will definitely help you, Janakiram.
Thank you, sir. That helps.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
Sajjani, Christian.
Yes, please do ask.
Doctor, you refer to the 15th chapter of the Gita. Sharapurushan, Akshara Purushottama.
Yeah.
Okay, if the 15th chapter is a very complicated chapter because it says, I am beyond Sharapurushan and Akshara Purushan. I am Purushottama.
Yeah.
That's what Sri Krishna says, right?
Yeah.
He talks about himself,
Yeah.
isn't he?
Correct. He's talking about himself, but he's talking about the himself within us. You know,
Both.
the Shri,
Tattvamasi.
yeah, absolutely. See, this teaching he gives in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the seventh chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he will introduce his lower self and his higher self. And in so many verses, he introduces himself as the conscious principle. I'm able to speak because of the Krishna principle. You are able to listen because of the consciousness within you. So in me, in each of us, there is the lower individual, which is the body mind. There is the higher individual, which is the consciousness principle. So I have been trained to interpret, to understand that the Uttama Purusha is the Shri Krishna within us as consciousness.
Okay. But one more question.
Sure.
You spoke about the active state, the dream state, the dreamless state, right?
Correct. Yeah.
3 states you spoke. But there's also a 4th state. There's also a 4th called Turaya state.
Yeah, the 4th state is not actually a state, because the 4th state is in and through the waking, dream, and deep. Now, for want of any description, it has been called Turiya, or the 4th.
Yes.
The 4th is not apart from waking, dream. Now, I'm in the waking state, you are in the waking state.
Yes.
So it is waking plus Turiya, it is dream plus Turiya, it is deep sleep plus Turiya. The 4th state is not apart from waking, dream. There is nothing like, there is a 4th which is apart from all these 3. The 4th is in and through all these 3.
So when I meditate, when I'm in a thoughtless state, I'm in the Turaya state.
See, that is what is normally we consider as the Nirvikalpa state, as the 4th state. The 4th state. So it is actually a meditative state. You are in that state. It is interpreted as the 4th state. But if you listen to teachers like Swami Dayananda, they are absolutely clear. There is nothing like the 4th state. The 4th state is in and through all the 3 states. Now, if I'm fully meditative in this moment, I'm wakeful plus Turiya. So the Turiya is there in and through all the 4th state. There is one Upanishad which deals exclusively about this, that is called the Mandukya Upanishad.
Yes.
And the Mandukya Upanishad talks about the Turiya in the 7th verse. Very beautifully called Nantat Prajnamna Bahish Prajnamna Ubayata Prajnamna Prajnana Ganam. So it talks of the 4th, which is actually, beyond waking, dream, and deep sleep. But it is talking about the Atma. To understand this, we have to understand that there are 3 levels of reality. Now, is it possible to explain this? You will understand when you wake up from your dream has completely disappeared. And then you know that the dream was a lower level of reality. Your waking was a higher level of reality. When a person becomes enlightened, you become enlightened to the Turiya, or the 4th state. And when you become enlightened to the Turiya, you see that your waking state is like a dream state. So the Turiya is considered an enlightened state of being.
Okay, Doctor, thanks.
But what you said is a very important question, and we need to really understand what this Turiya is. And
okay, Doctor, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Hegde, this is Sana.
Yes, sir.
I have heard to you and I know you last 30 years.
Yes, sir.
By nature, no, this is as a takeaway, I'm just asking this question
Yeah.
with reference to your talk. By nature, you are a very, very balanced, very calm, quiet. That's what I have seen you. In your profession and as a person, what kind of a difference was brought about when you started studying Bhagavad Gita systematic, before and after? What kind of impact it had on your personal as well as professional life before and after systematic study of Bhagavad Gita? Just few things might help. And of course, we are retired people. You are still actively involved. I think it must be doing a lot of good to you. Please.
Yes, sir. In our work life, in our personal life, we see a lot of problems, especially right now when you see patients who are suffering from so many problems, but also they have economic problems. Yesterday, I had a patient who had difficulty to pay the hospital bill, and he was saying, I'm difficulty to have food, I'm living on biscuits. You know, when you see such problems, on the one hand, he has no money. On the other hand, he has got a son to be able to treat in a patient. You get really affected by seeing the real life problems. Now, what the Bhagavad Gita tells you is, if God has allowed this to happen, as the Muslim said, this is the will of Allah, it's called Inshallah. Now, for me, I will be very upset if I'm not able to accept the reality. Now, God has allowed it. Now, there should be no internal fight within me why God has allowed this to happen. I need to accept the reality as it is and have no internal turmoil within me. At the same time, do whatever in my possibility to be able to help in that particular situation. So, this will certainly help me to get a certain mental poise, and as a doctor to be able to see what best you can do on the ground reality.
How about in your personal life?
The same story, sir. You know, personal issues upset much more intensely than professional issues, because professional issues, maybe once you move away from them, somebody else will be handling the problem. It does not affect you. But the home issues always affect us much more intensely. And the inputs from scriptures, I'm not saying the Bhagavad Gita alone, all scriptural inputs have a very nice tamponading effect. You know, this is what is called, whenever you get bad news, what do you say? What? But internally, you will be able to say, Tam titikshasa bharata, become mentally strong. And internally, you're saying, so what? I'm going to handle it.
Thank you.
Doctor, there's one question on the chat about why Krishna favored the Pandavas. You can answer that.
I have no answer. See, now, why Krishna favored the Pandavas? Krishna, if you really see, was actually indifferent. Really. Krishna stood like a very indifferent person, supporting both parties. In fact, what he did at the time of the war, when Krishna was lying down, Dhritarashtra comes towards the feet of Krishna, and Duryodhana comes towards the head of Krishna. Both of them are waiting for Krishna to wake up. And when he wakes up, he first sees Yudhishthira, and Yudhishthira asks for his support. He says, I'm there with you. And Duryodhana asks him for his entire army. He says, I'll give you my army. So as I understand, so many people have analyzed it in different ways. Krishna has not taken sides. Krishna has been like as an indifferent supporter of both people. And ultimately they say it is dharma that wins. When whoever is on the party of adharma will lose, those who are dharmic will win.
There's one more question.
Can you read it out for me, please? Brilliant answer. Somebody said I can't. It is mentioned in the Gita when everyone will get enlightened. Is that the question?
Is it mentioned if everyone will get enlightened?
Gautama Buddha wanted, when Gautama Buddha became enlightened, this was his mission. He says, I want every person and every being to become enlightened. So that is the vision of all great masters. So all great masters, once they become enlightened, they would like to stay along for some more time to help as many people to become enlightened. So see, this is the greatest thing that can happen to anybody, to discover something of the extraordinary. And then they would like to take everybody along with them.
Right. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
And any more questions, or we will have a 2-minute silence to absorb all that Doctor has said, after which we will have a vote of thanks by Mr. Ramesh. So may we have 2 minutes silence, absorbing all that was said. Okay, thank you. Ramesh, may we have the vote of thanks, please?
Thank you, Sajni. I should first apologize. I've not been on the call continuously for a long time because of the sheer numbers of people who are trying to get in. So I think that underlines the value of our speaker today, Dr. Hegde, who is not only very well known, but very much loved by so many people. So thank you so much, Dr. Hegde, for giving us this beautiful message, Krishna's message today. Thank you for uplifting all of us. Thank you for setting the example by living that kind of a life. I think it's not just the gentle way in which you speak, but it's really the way in which you live, that we experience your vibrations, your satsangs, in the many satsangs that I've had the good fortune of spending with you. So thank you so much for today. Thank you all.